That's why racing. I know. How does the public?
Well, what's your just do it when we're doing it. Look where we got.
So what's the problem with
Well, that's why I'm presenting it today. I don't want to just bring it up.
You know, I see it working in many places without an issue. It's a hump to get over it. Now people don't really even care or think about it. So I hear the guys say, well, third-party LASIK is not going to keep people from protecting. It's silly. It will. It's a public perception deal. Let's just make sure we're not.
I feel like a ball with my red shirt.
That's what I saw on there. 6 or 8, knock it to the ground.
Well, I
And knock it back twice.
Yeah.
Never had a horse even an altitude. It's a 4.
You know, 2 weeks in a
It's about a week or so.
Drowning it in the lake.
Slow down there. Well,
That's not nothing as mom.
I got the solution, I got the solution.
I guess now's not the time to talk about our amended race day schedule.
About what?
Our amended race day schedule.
Oh!
17 days.
Hey, I left my pitchfork in the car. I'll be right back.
Yes. Won't be the first.
These things that have to be burning. Yeah, we got all this.
It's good to see people participating in our meetings.
That's all.
That's all.
That's all, Ms. Bourget, what?
What I do.
Mrs. Morgan, you said you wanted participation. Did you see how Dustin got participation with his item?
I didn't even get a chance to get up.
She said she liked participation. She's got it going.
Item E.
I have an introduction to make. I think I should let you all know that we have a new investigator with the commission, and her name is Elizabeth Garcia. She's brand new. I'd like for you to meet our new investigator.
Oh, I did meet her. I didn't know what she was doing.
Condolences.
What she was doing.
That's what, I don't know which was.
She has actually lot of experience. She's been involved in security. And she has participated quite a few times in our integrity meetings. And to actually be invited to be a participant speaks very highly of that individual. So I thank the commission for their, good interview process and bringing somebody to our state commission. So welcome. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome, Liz.
We're gonna try and wind down by 4:30 today, and this meeting will conclude for sure by 4:45, so we're gonna get started and get moving here. We are going to, have one last statement about 4E, and I'm gonna make it. And that is that we are going to ask the veterinarians that sit on this committee to contact the state board, veterinarian board, and ask for a statement in clarification that they have regarding the follow-up and any other items that this committee feels needs to be addressed. And Sunland Park, they presented their house rule, and it's been duly noted. I think the committee, if there's any further questions, they can ask for further information. And if anyone has anything they would like to add to the ask for the state board to reply to, please let Mr. Trejo know, and we'll add it to that list. Yes, Mr. Chastain.
I have a little clarification, please. You're done. Done. Who's going to request what from the state and which board from the state?
This committee,
Okay.
is going to, we're going to ask the veterinarians that sit on this committee to contact the state board, veterinarians board, and
Okay, that's
reply to any questions that this committee still feels need to be addressed. And if you have anything in particular that you would like to have addressed, you are to send it to Mr. Trejo, and we will contact the veterinarians so that I don't know if Mr. Trejo wants to go with you, if this is a walk-in appointment, I think that would be the best thing, and then just make a phone call. That would be my suggestion, but that's what we'll do.
Okay, I just want to add to that. There's something that you may not know. I've reached out to the Mexico Veterinary Board. I'm on their agenda for their next meeting in about 10 days concerning this. They have all my documentation from the model rules for the NTRA accreditation. They also have all the responses from that board, so I have done that.
Okay, we don't want to necessarily need to be on the agenda, that's your business.
Right,
Represent Sunland Park.
I'm just
Ours
giving
is a
that
little
to
bit
you.
different, we want a conversation done with the state board, veterinary board.
It's just the way I understood that, you were going to ask me to do that which I am on this
Well,
board,
there's
so
other veterinarians
Okay, no, I'm
too
just-
besides you.
I'm just giving you the information,
Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Madam Chair.
Moving on. For at subsection C of 15.2.69 NMAC medication restrictions, discussion, action. And this item is brought before the committee by Commissioner Peraza. I'm going to let him present it.
Gentlemen, in our last meeting, Mrs. Alvarez asked that we change a rule that, and it's been one of my pet peeves for a long time, that if a horse has a bad test, we need to penalize him for 6 months and not 60 days. The problem is you penalize a horse for 60 days, and that's nothing to some people. Maybe they can keep him in training. You penalize a horse for 6 months. It sends a message to everybody that we have to clean up something in this racing community. The second part of this discussion is that last year at Albuquerque and at many other places, a horse gets a bad test in a trial, and then he's allowed to go into the finals. And I think if a horse gets a bad test in the trials, he doesn't get to go to the finals. He doesn't even get to compete in the finals. And whether it's been adjudicated or not, and I just think that sends a message to the people that, don't try to do anything in a trial. But that's my personal opinion. Yes, ma'am.
I have Lisa Johnson. I have a question. What kind of medication positive? Are you talking anything across the
Anything
board?
across the board.
So,
Dexamethasone, any of it.
oh, okay. Because we have certain classifications that
No, no, I
immediately go on
understand
the
that, but-
stewards list.
Like it down last year with dexamethasone.
Uh-huh.
You know, what I'm just saying, they cheated to get to the finals. I mean, I believe they cheated to get to the finals. And so the best thing to do is penalize them so they can't run in. They should know that before they ever saddle up.
Yes, Mr.
Good, Captain Chief. So are we talking about only in something that results in a loss of purse? You're not talking about a positive or an overreach on butazolpine or something like that, are you?
Well, that could be something I'd like to see in anything. I mean, why would we let a horse run? I mean, the 6-month thing has to do with, class drugs.
Yes, sir.
But for the trials, why do we want to let somebody cheat a little bit? And maybe you raising a good question, but the ones that I'm familiar with are dexamethasone and stuff like that.
Yeah, those are Class C, they're loss of purse.
Yeah, and what
Yes, sir.
I'm saying is, why would we want to let them run? I mean, I think that you're just going to send a message, not to you, but,
Yes,
to
sir.
people. Let's be more proactive and not think about what we're doing globally.
Lonnie Barber, Director of Sunray Park. I think this was addressed at one time that when we did this, some of us wanted 6 months and then we settled on 60 days. But if I remember correctly.
Well, 60 days is held up in court.
Mr. Trey.
Yes, Madam Chair, Lonnie, Mr. Barber is correct. This was brought up maybe last year or a little over a year ago in regards to the stiffer penalty for horses going on the list from 60 days to 6 months. And speaking to Mr. Waterman, there was a reason for the 60 days. But I know the agency's been getting a lot of pressure from our constituents out there to extend it to 6 months. I think it's something that at least the people that I've been talking to really would like to see. Is the stiffer penalty of 6 months going on the list.
So just for clarification purposes, we're talking about a class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. It would be a 6 months penalty.
No, ma'am. It would be any drug categorized by the Association of Racing Commissioners Uniform Classification Guidelines as a penalty A substance, anabolic, androgenic steroids, albuterol, or other beta agonists with significant anabolic effects. Other drugs designed to promote growth in muscle or muscle building, but not limited to growth hormones, somatotrophins, insulin growth factors, gene modifying, and cobalt. They're all classified by the RCI. The drug isn't classified by the RCI. If you go to the RMTC, they give a classification and penalize based on their recommendation.
That's per rule.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mr. Locke.
I guess I have a lot of questions, but I totally agree with Mr. Carrazza. I'd like to see it made a little simpler, like any drug, either classified as A or B, 60 days. That makes it a lot easier for us instead of us having to find out if it falls into one of these categories, being a steroid or not. If it's an A or a B, that's good enough for me. I like that part of it. The second part, which we're talking about trials, there's no really designation about the trials. I can't see a 4C minor, a Butte at 2.1 being penalized to that extent. What you might consider is any violation that might consider a change in the purse, a disqualification of the horse. That's serious. And then that should maybe that should be the criteria.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just saying that, last year they run dexamethasone, then they're allowed to run in the trials.
Right.
And, it's a quarter horse race.
Right.
But I got a lot
Well, that is-
of people, and I'm just saying,
Mhm.
prohibit them from going forward.
That would be covered, because that's a purse redistribution type of a fine.
Mr. Tracy?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I was just thinking, we passed a rule at the last committee meeting that any horse that's part of a medication violation is ineligible to start until it's been adjudicated. I don't know, because of the timing of it, that horse may be ineligible because of this violation in the trials has not been adjudicated completely.
Right.
Before the final, so maybe that'll be enough to keep the horse out, with that new rule.
Well, that's what I'm
Something
saying.
with it.
If you come out positive, then you're just stopping the horse from running. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I like the this from the 60 days to 6 months, it's great. And I'd go with this rule.
For the penalty A.
Yeah,
Yes.
Tom Gottschalk, New Mexico Horse Breeder. So just so I'm clear, we're talking about any class A or B, Izzy? So wouldn't just be limited to the beta agonist issues, right?
It would
Not for the
be,
first part.
It's the list of Dr. Waterman, when we created this rule back in 2016, he made it to cover a lot of ground, a lot of the dangerous drugs that we should be seeing in here, and then the abuse drugs.
Right.
Cobalt, growth hormones, we did have one of those earlier this year. Clenbuterol, albuterol, we all know that. Steroids, things that'll cause a horse to perceive a horse to get an advantage during the race.
So it would be, pardon me for interrupting, but it would be basically B through E is written in red, or I guess pardon me, A through E.
Yes.
We would consider extending those from 60 days to 6 months? Is that the issue that we're discussing now?
That is correct, but then Mr. Walker said to make it easier, A and B, but then you're gonna add a bigger, huge list of drugs to it. Because not all bees fall under any of these.
right,
that's true.
take,
So it would be a pretty
Lidocaine.
significant change.
Sorry?
lidocaine.
So I guess my question would be, I'm not an expert in this field, if we're talking about extending that list, is that what your intention would be?
Well, that's what my intention was, but this is a good start.
Identifying ourselves.
Ron Walker.
Sorry.
As Izzy said, that would encompass a lot more drugs if you just went across the board, A and B. However, A's and B's are classified that for a reason that it enhances the horse's performance. So why?
Tom Gottschalk, New Mexico Horse Breeder. So that wouldn't include necessarily an overage for a therapeutic like Butte, for example.
No,
It
absolutely
would fall
not.
outside of that.
No, the Buick's and Dexas are class 4.
Right.
They would not be included in
They're
this
C.
Right,
category.
so these are legitimate performance enhancing drugs in this family of drugs.
That's why I was asking.
That was my intent.
Okay. So do we need is this for further discussion, or do we need a motion to?
I'm not sure if we're ready to adopt until we have the language for it. Right now, I think Mr. Walker made a suggestion for language changes in here, so if somebody wants to come up with a statement of the rule, then that's when we can adopt it. Then I would entertain that. Yes.
Madam Chairman, Jay Taylor, New Mexico Horse Breeder, and I'm speaking privately as an owner. I'm not opposed to the rule,
It's too tough.
but as an owner, what I see is my animal gets penalized for 6 months and the trainer keeps on training. I didn't have care, custody, and control of that horse. I didn't administer the drugs, but I'm the one taking the punishment. And we need owners.
Pierre Hamscoy, owner, I want to make the same point that he just made. We got to be careful that we don't penalize the owners who aren't doing these things for the horses, the trainers. We got to get the responsibility back on the trainers. They're watching the horses every day, not the owners. And if you start getting horses out of competition for 6 months, they're going to sell that horse. They're going to give it away. Nobody wants to feed a horse for 6 months for free. You've got to get away from penalizing owners. We're the ones that pay for this. All of us. And we wouldn't need any of you if we didn't have horses, right? So owners are the ones taking the brunt here. And one other point I want to make about these auto competition tests, horses are being taken out of races, which I think is right. There's no penalty for the trainer. That's not right. The owner's getting killed and the trainer's not getting hit. So please be careful about hurting the owners. Make sure the responsibility gets back on the trainers, because that's where it belongs.
Thank you. That was Mr. Anderson. Yes.
Madam Chair, Jeff True, Ruidoso Downs. What I heard about the dates, 60 days versus 6 months, was that 60 days was physiologically defendable in court. I mean, that speaks pretty loudly to me, and I'm just wondering if going to 6 months is feasible in your mind, Director Trejo, or should we be looking at something between 60 days and 6 months, or is there some magic to, I mean, I don't want to lose that position that we have with the defensible position of 60 days.
Mr. Trejo.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and that's Dr. Waterman's contention, and I'd probably caution that before we really modify this rule, that we consult with our equine health testing advisor, Dr. Waterman. The 60 days was put there for a specific reason. It's not arbitrary as upheld by courts. 6 months, one could argue that it is an arbitrary number. Why 6 months? But personally, emotionally, yeah, 6 months is what it's got to be. But I think Mr. Chu's correct that we write a fine line there in being able to defend this and not making it a penalty for an owner that's going to require due process. The steward's list process has worked pretty well for us. So I don't know what date would tilt the scale, whether it's 6 months or 9 months or a year. I'm not sure which one would tilt the scale in court of law. But, you know, I think as far as the 6 months, 60 days, we can make a decision today. But as far as changing the rule to any A or B, I certainly want to confer with Dr. Waterman before we move forward with something like that.
Madam Chair, if I could just follow up, Jeff True, it seems to me in defense of the 60-day issue, we're going to talk, hopefully we'll get to it today, we're going to talk about penalties for trainers with multiple out of competition positives. I'd rather we went to that route than try to create some arbitrary number that a horse is going to be out of competition. The point being, if a horse gets an out of competition positive and he's on the list for 60 days, the owner has now time to change trainers, resume with that horse, maybe in that same year. And that to me is reasonable and logical. But 6 months, to the owner's point that we heard a moment ago, they're going to quit on the horse. The horse is going to go elsewhere. You can't really defend that it's going to take 6 months for the drugs in that horse's system to clear. Maybe you could if you count hair testing, but I'd rather us table this, get the language tightened up, and then look at the trainer penalties for multiple OOCT.
That's fine with me, Mr. True. I'm just reading it up. A lady came to the last commission meeting and asked that.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to move forward, so.
Yes.
Just-
Justin.
Alan Chastain, just a point of clarification. We get it confused a little in here when we're talking about it. Out of competition is not the same thing as hair testing. Hair testing is where the horse is sanctioned and no trainer or owner. Out of competition testing in the blood, the trainer can be sanctioned. So can the owner, depending on what's in the horse. So out of competition is not synonymous with hair testing.
Thank you for that. Good clarification.
Ron Walker, another point of clarification, we already have ARCI rules, penalty already calls for a horse that is subject to a type A penalty to already receive 180 days. So that's already in our record.
Madam Chair, just for clarification on what Ron said, but that comes when the hearing actually happens.
It's adjudicated, yes.
So the horse is getting 60 days, the hearing takes place on penalty A, then the horse is subject to up to 180 days on the vet's list.
Yeah.
So the horse is taken out for a considerable amount of time, but after the adjudication
Yeah.
process.
And that's already for an A-type penalty.
Lisa Johnson, on that same line, though, we have had horses that have come off the list that will go back on the vet list as soon as they are adjudicated. So it's not working to where they'll go from the stewards list to the vet list immediately. So hopefully,
And
now
it
that we
has,
have more help, it will.
and it has caused a problem with the 60 days ran out.
Yeah.
And we have to put the horse back into racing because, so I'd like the 60 extended, as Mr. Carrazza said. For that reason, maybe not 180, but some extension would help. Yeah.
I've got a question. I remember when this was brought up during public comment, and I'm just trying to think back, was she talking specifically about clenbuterol and albuterol? And not, but we're taking it to a bigger, different level with including a lot more classifications. And have that with me. That's what I was recalling. Yes, Mr. Trejo?
Madam Chair, I believe it was anything that was pursuant to this rule and the rule book, A, B, C, and D, and E, as well as the other competition rules, extending it to 6 months, if I can recall.
Excuse me.
Madam
yes.
Chair, Jay Taylor, just one more thing. As an owner, if my trainer does administer an illegal drug to my horse and it wins the race, I'm already penalized. I lost the purse. Now, the trainer can appeal that and he can drag it out and train for another year, but is my horse banned for 6 months? Or can he race while the appeal's going on?
60 days.
No,
Do what?
You're jailed for 60 days.
Lisa Johnson, no, the horse doesn't have any rights, so the horse would immediately go on the list.
That's existing rule.
But under this, so it'd be 6 months.
Or 6 months,
Potentially.
potentially.
So what I'm saying is the trainer could file an appeal and he could continue training, but my horse has been busted with this and he's off for 6 months. And I lost my purse money too. Now who got penalized there?
Well, good point, Jay. And we're not gonna say we're gonna pick on you today. Thanks for your comments. Mr. Capilouchi, I think.
I'm sorry, Vanessa Alexander, owner. I just did want to clarify that Norma did, when she did speak at this last meeting, it wasn't in regards directly to the albuterol hair penalties, wanted to extend them because just the sheer amount.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm like, I thought that's what was specified. Yes.
Gene Garcia, trainer owner. I heard the owners complain about the days, the horses, I mean, we've fought this issue for years now. And these guys, you see them repeating offenses. You've gotten in the owner's pocket, the trainer's pocket. Where do we go to get these guys to stop using these illegal drugs? I mean, you gotta stop somewhere. But the owners that continue to stay with them, trainers that are getting the bad test, those are the guys that are, I mean, he says his horse got a bad test, how do I know my trainer did it? Well, are you still with that trainer? Maybe it's time to change barns, try somebody new, It's because you got the big names and they, get away with it, It stops when you quit using the same dirty trainers. All there is to them. You gotta get after somebody. If you gotta penalize the horse, you're gonna upset the owner. Maybe the owner will get mad enough where he'll take his horse from that barn, take him to another barn. Get back to well, then you pick him up, take him. There's plenty of trainers out there, plenty of guys. There's a lot of guys that run clean, there's a lot of guys that run dirty. I mean, you gotta find your happy home and be where you're at. But if it takes a horse being off 6 months, so be it, I mean, it is what it is, but something's gotta be done.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Yes.
I don't see us having, Dick Capilouchi have an action on this item today. Is he suggesting he wanted to refer to the equine medical director to get some advice? Yeah.
If we want to move on, I'll make that motion.
Yes, thank you.
Move to table.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, this item, for G, I believe, or for F, will be tabled. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think will be addressed later in our meeting today, so. Okay, 4G subsection A of 15.2.48 INAC general provisions, discussion action. And this is Commissioner Carazo?
Yeah, I brought this up because last year I claimed the horse and wasn't a class A or violation. And I'm not saying violation like Dick's talking about with Butazolidine or something. I'm saying that we need to increase it to the dexamethasone to those to where the guy that's making the claim and the horse comes up with a positive test that he has the right to avoid the claim.
Any discussion from the committee?
Dick Capelucci, that's currently there, correct? In other words, like Fred
It's-
Danley's,
It's only for horses that test positive for a drug that would knock him out of the race, not for
that would
a
result in
lower penalty
disqualification.
type drug. Yeah. I mean, I would be okay with this, but I don't like that it says require. I would like it to be at the claimant's option. I mean, I might claim.
The claimant should be the one that makes.
Yeah, I agree, because I may claim a broodmare and it came back over, I say, I don't care, I want to keep it, So,
Can you talk about the word requires,
yes,
the second sentence of 4?
well, I saw it up above.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, it does say requires,
Yeah, it does say on 4.
Yeah,
the second
that requires the horse be placed on the source list, but the claimant has 72 hours in which to request the source to void the claim.
The requirement is only for purposes of identifying which horses do it.
Somewhere there is, it's stated that the horse had to be, able to be
Mr. Traynor?
yeah, but purse, yeah, where's that, is he at?
What's
Yeah, Madam
And then
Chair.
Leslie.
Yeah, just for clarification, I did speak to Commissioner Carrazza about this, and yeah, we want the claimant to have the flexibility
Right.
to request turning the horse in. Because like you said, he wants to claim the mare for
Yeah,
breeding.
right.
And he's gotta give it back.
Yeah.
So his game plan, so.
Right.
I think we should always leave the option in there to the claimant, to
Yes,
give the horse back or not.
yes.
And I think that's what we're thinking. If I can recall.
To the discretion of the claimant.
Mr. Dix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if statewide on the blanks that they have cobalt testing, but I know at Sunland, we have you could pay for, as a claimant, pay for additional testing, and if it comes back, the claim could be voided. So Flacco probably knows better than I do. Do the other tracks have that on their claim blanks?
Dick Capelucci, no, that's unique to your track. The only other question, being I have the floor, I'm good with the verbiage. My only question is, does Dick Capelucci need 72 hours to decide if he wants the horse or not? I should be able to decide in 24 hours for sure. If I get a phone call from the state investigator and said that horse tested positive, surely I don't need 3 days to decide if I want him or not. I mean, I think 24 hours is plenty of time to decide if you want the horse or not. You're gonna know within the next 30 seconds, but, so I would say 24 hours is fine.
Oh,
Mr. Walker.
the point of clarification I was trying to get, it's in 4, number 4 on that page. It says the successful claimant of the horse that tests positive for a substance that requires the horse to be placed on the stewards list. That's the criteria that I wanted to mention. In Mr. Carrazza's case, the horse he claimed that the horse had drugs that did not qualify it to be on the stewards list, but still it was overdrugged. So then he didn't have the opportunity to void that claim. So that line has to be changed. That's the line that has to be changed.
The stewards.
That the horse has to be placed on the stewards list. That has to be taken out, and then it would cover all instances.
Yeah, I mean, it will
Okay.
have to be written, but I'd like to see something go forward.
Yeah, because I knew it didn't apply to everybody, because obviously it didn't apply to your case.
Mr. Walker, is that something that you feel we can correct?
Yes,
today?
that can be corrected very easily.
Okay, would you mind if there's not any further discussion, allow further discussion. Would you read that whole paragraph, how you feel it should be written, and then we'll discuss that?
All right,
And you're on number 4, where it starts the successful claim of a horse.
of a horse that tests positive for a substance that requires the horse to be placed on the steward's list. So that has to be changed.
Strike that.
Yeah. Dick Capilucci, Ron, could you say something to the effect that results in a loss of purse?
No,
Where we
because
cover
that
decks?
wouldn't change. No, because that's the secondary effect of that rule. That would be, if it's on the steward's list, it's a penalty that would affect the person. So that wouldn't
Steward's
cover.
list wouldn't, it currently doesn't include decks. You're not gonna be placed on the steward's list for decks. Whereas if you put loss of purse and he ended up with a dex positive, he would have the right to void the claim.
Well, somebody can come up with that language. You test positive for a substance
It results in a
that
loss of purse.
requires.
That would cover all your corticosteroids, your class A, your class Bs.
Go ahead, Izzy.
Yeah, Chair, good idea, but sometimes there's mitigating factors
Yeah.
that might cause the stewards not to take away that purse, and then we really get in a tangle there. I was thinking successful claimant of a horse that tests positive for, we could just say for now, prohibited substance shall be notified at the time the horse.
Yeah. That would cover everything and, but that would be a high view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's simple overage.
I don't know.
Worried about buyer's remorse.
Madam Chair, Jeff True, Rita Downs, is that what we want? Any drug violation, you can void a claim?
I don't.
Is that what we want?
Well, I'm
Dick
saying,
Capilucci.
we're not talking about Jude or something like that. I'm talking about dexamethasone and those type of drugs.
Well, I
So you
know how
don't
you
want
could,
every drug.
no, I know how you could cover it, but if you want, you could say A, B, any drug classified as A, B, or 4C major. That would include all of
Well,
those.
that's what I'm saying.
And that would do it. And then the minors would be dropped out.
That makes sense.
That would work.
Now, I'm just wondering if maybe we should take a little bit more time to draw this up and
Yeah.
then present it at our next rules committee meeting.
Madam Chairman, I'd move we table allowing staff time to work on the rule language, please.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Madam Chairman, Jay Taylor, I think the last one, D, the horse suffers an injury that requires euthanasia, determined by the officials, there should be a limit on that, 24, 72 hours. I mean, I'm all for this. I fought for this 5 or 6 years ago with Watson, because we need owners. We need people to be able to go claim a horse, and the scare of that horse breaking down in the race and losing is fine. But if the horse is injured and I claim him, I think I should know if he's injured seriously enough that I don't want that horse within 24 to 48 hours.
Get
What are you reading?
a lab test within that period of time, you think? Even if it's not-
Well, it's under item 5, section B, if he suffers an injury that would require him to be put down.
Yeah, Dick Capilucci, they're currently saying that if he suffers an injury, they put him down on the track and get your money back. They're not talking about waiting 48 hours and then deciding, I don't know, this horse has got a broken leg.
Okay, what if he suffers that injury? What if I claim the 4th place horse and he suffers that injury? And as he's going off, they notice he's really bad and it's getting worse. I mean, shouldn't you have a little bit of time to look the horse over?
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's one of the concerns I have with Rule 5 is it's specific that the horse has to be euthanized on the track when some track veterinarians will refuse to put the horse down on the track and trail a 3-legged horse off to the barn area, euthanize the horse there immediately after. It's rule, the way it's written, wouldn't pertain to that horse. I think that doesn't benefit the owner.
My question to that, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, Mark Brown again. You know, race in California, none of the claiming rates there. The claim will become invalid even if the horse is banned on there. Or you have the option, you can take it. And I've been on both sides. I've had a horse that I had in claim race that got claimed, broke down, I got the horse back. I also claimed a horse that broke his S point, they hadn't demanded on, and I didn't have to take it. So it might be, look at maybe some of these other states, and that protects the gaming and the owners of claim horses and from people taking that. But if that horse can't make it back to the finish line, and that claim can be voided. Just another option.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Davis.
Madam Chair, if I remember correctly, we went around and around and around with that verbiage, and we came up with this to try to make it as simple as possible. Maybe I'll make a motion that reviewing 4, we review 5 and try to tighten that up a little bit if that need be. But if I remember correctly, we just wanted to put something in place. At the time, we didn't have anything in place to protect the claimant for a horse that dies on the track. So we were trying to take that step. So maybe now's the time to progress and tighten it up a little bit.
So we did have a motion on the floor and a second. Any further, right now we're having discussion.
Right here, Dr. Gonzalez, private veterinary.
Mr. Gonzalez, you need to be acknowledged by the chair. Mr. Gonzalez?
I think one word would fix that catastrophic injury on the track. That would fix that verbiage there at the end on B, on subsection B. If it suffers a catastrophic injury where they can't make it from off of the track, then your claim is in, or you have the option to turn your claim in already.
Yeah. That's the way it is now.
That would probably fix it, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Yes.
I think, to get back to what Dustin had said, we've discussed this quite a bit, and it's really that final call, that official vet, as far as catastrophic or not. The devil's in the details there, and I think Mr. Trejo mentioned too, some vets will put a horse down with a suspensory apparatus failure, and some will not. So there's your difference. That's catastrophic to one veterinarian, not catastrophic to another. That's where our hangup has been in the discussions in the past, is the official veterinarian's determination of these things.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Madam-
One comment, and then we're going to.
Madam Chair, I'll be real quick. One of the things we got bogged down to was when horses were vanned off, because some tracks had different policies, and then we were worried that word would get out, their horses claimed, and so we tried to make that rule as simple as possible, if I remember correctly. So just for that information.
Died on the track.
Thank you. So all those in favor of tabling this, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So moving on. Okay, for H, please. Subsection B, 15.2.6A, INMAC veterinarians reports discussion. This is another proposal by Commissioner Pelosi, please.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move on to, because we're going to run out of time, I'd like to move on to item L. And skip the rest of it, please, if you don't mind. It has to do with test barn, which is very important, and of course, the next one, which is very important, is, I'd like to go to M and then to N, because those are two main discussions today. And those other ones of mine have to do with some things that we can address later, if you don't mind.
Okay. So we will entertain a motion to table H through K.
So moved.
Please have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we are on 4L. Okay, certification requirement of test barn employees and horseman representatives, licensees who sign the sample acknowledgement of receipt form update. This is going to be Yes, Mr. Trejo, would you please present?
Yes, Madam Chair, this has been on the agenda a few times, but we're finally making some headway. Rosemary reached out to the University of Arizona, the head coordinator, Wendy Davis, and the students are willing to take on a project that would go through test barn protocols and create a video in which in turn we would show it to our test barn employees, as well as grooms and horsemen. I think that was touched on a while back, to get everyone firsthand knowledge of how the system works in the test barn. So when they sign off on the test card, they know what they're signing for. All our employees are well versed in all the protocols as well by watching the video. And it's something that I think came up last year, and we've been working on it. But finally got someone that was willing to really do the work.
And this is, that's Summer Park.
And also, yes, Summer Park was also contacted. They're willing to open their testing facility to do the video work.
And we've waived all fees to the commission, site fees.
And it's free.
You know, guys, this is really important because we keep losing, cases because it all has to do with the test form. What did the vet actually see and all this other stuff? And I just think we have to tighten it up somehow so that whoever signing that piece of paper knows that urine came out of that horse and it's a valid interpretation of what we're doing.
Madam Chair, I will be meeting with the University of Arizona on the 25th. We're going to account for the age group reduction of talent races.
All right, and if necessary, we can discuss it or you can have a report for us. Committee meeting. Okay, so at this point, there's no action taken, it's just a report. Okay. Moving on to 4M, beta agonist violations discussion. A, extending the time horses go on the stewards list. And B, consideration of a rule for repeat offenders. And A, and this is Mr. Goncho.
Yeah, I believe this is me. I think we covered this basically already, right? Extending the time these horses go on the stewards list, we essentially tabled that. We're looking for further advice on whether that's the best course of action. So if we can, Madam Chair, skip to B, give consideration of a rule for repeat offenders. I'm not, I haven't read the entire rule book, but I'm wondering if there's something that can be done. It's come up by a member of the audience. What can we do about these guys? Like in Albuquerque, for example, Ken, you brought it up. We had horses that were disqualified. The same trainer of the disqualified horse had a horse on the also eligible list that was able to run in the finals, for example. And this particular individual, I believe, is a repeat offender at other tracks in New Mexico. So,
Yes, Mr.
Director
Trejo.
Trejo.
Madam Chair, a few meetings ago, and it's about ready to go into rule probably by the end of this year, is the multiple medication violation point system. We have that mechanism to help compound penalties for repeat violators. But I think the hot topic that we've been hearing about recently are these guys that keep getting the violations in the hair. We're not sanctioning the trainers, and we're desperate to look for avenues on how to get those people out of the industry. As far as the commission does, if we pursue it, we need rules that will stick and uphold in court. Maybe we look to the associations for a little help in that area as well. They don't need a fighting process. They can get to the point where I'd love to be a lot quicker than I am. But this is a good topic for conversation because a lot of people have been contacted the agency, very frustrated. The scenario that you just mentioned, amongst others, we have a guy that had 9 violations this year in the hair, and he's still allowed to participate. That's a tainted outfit. I wouldn't want in my racetrack. But maybe you should speak to the tracks about that.
Yes, Mr. Cook.
Don Cook with the Downset. How are all these people getting through the post-race tests? If we're finding this in the hair, pre-race or whatever, and those horses run and they win, they're skating through the test barn. How is this happening? We're taking blood and urine of every horse.
Withdrawal times.
And John, withdrawal times.
They beat us at the test farm.
That's why hair testing works.
Well, and would someone took us to court on hair, would they win? They lose? Is this scientific evidence that hair is?
So far, so good. So far, so
We
good.
haven't penalized nobody yet.
We're,
Other than
Yes,
all them
I'd like to recognize Mr. Brown.
Mark Brown again, and I got a question. In a lot of states and jurisdictions, they have rules in there that if you're doing something that's detrimental to horse racing, you can have your license suspended and refuse that. Multiple offenders like that, I think would follow underneath that. If that's something that, and I don't know what's in your rules and that, but it's definitely detrimental because the word's out, and the fraternity at Albuquerque is a prime example. What I'm hearing, they've had bad tests to read. It's hearsay. I heard they had bad hair tests to read those. So the same trainers are having bad hair test problems. That is detrimental to the sport. And in a lot of jurisdictions, they do have those rules if the commission is willing to carry it on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Chair, we do have that rule, and that's one avenue that the commission is looking towards with their Attorney General. We started the conversation with our AG to see if that rule will be solid enough to hold up before the law.
And unfortunately, we don't have our counsel with us today.
No,
so-
it's just a question that.
Yeah, thank you. You know, what you might want to do is that maybe have a rule in the state, just so we can review it.
I know a lot of jurisdictions have that, and it's pretty much standard in most jurisdictions to have something like that. And this is definitely detrimental to our sports.
That's right. Yeah, it's been a really frustrating avenue. We hear it, people are living it, as an owner, trainer. We know. The good thing is that we are doing hair testing, and we are finding, different positives, so. Yes, Mr. True?
Madam Chairman, Jeff True, Ruidosa Downs. I heard Izzy loud and clear, and I think I'm hearing the rest of you. I will try to convene the track managers for a discussion about uniformity among our exclusions. And maybe that includes a discussion about specific instances of OCT positives. Maybe it includes a discussion about hair testing positives. To your point, I seem to be making the distinction, the incorrect distinction between those two rules, but I agree with Izzy. We can say if a guy's got 5 out of competition tests, he cannot start horses here anymore. And that's a lot quicker and a lot easier to defend or to prosecute, if you will. So track guys need to get together, it sounds like to me, and I'll try to do that.
Yes, Mr.
Madam Chair, I was kind of on the same boat with Mr. True that I think some of the problems some of the issues is the inconsistencies. If we exclude people, then if they're allowed to run at this track or that track. And I wish Mr. Amstor was in the audience because I used to be on his side of you can't punish the owner, but I think we've got to the point where this guy that has 9 bad hair tests, we got to take every horse in his file and say, you're not welcome here. Otherwise, you're just going to run off one trainer and then these horses are just going to keep going on. So I think we've got to that point where as tracks and as a horsemen's association and as breeders, as an industry, we should all come together and say, you got 9 bad tests, you're out of the horsemen's association, or 9 bad hair tests. You're excluded from Sunland Park. You're excluded from wherever. I think we could all agree on that, but the thing, I don't want to punish owners, but I think we're at the point where owners know that who they're dealing with when they have someone that has just that many bad hair tests.
The question would be, why are you choosing to stay with
Yeah,
that person?
and we may punish an honest owner, but I was always on the other side, and I've been here for 17 years, and I've seen what it's become. Until we take every horse out of the file, out of action, I just think we're gonna continually just keep running off trainer after trainer after trainer, so I don't know how and I'm not speaking for the other tracks, and probably speaking out of turn from my attorney's not here, but that's just my own personal Dustin Dix opinion, but I think that's probably how that's about the only way we can combat it, is start going after every horse in their file.
Yes, thank you, Justin. Yes, Ms. Johnson?
Lisa Johnson, there was one track that did that, and it was Zia, it was Fred Hutton. And it was after, I think it was in 2014, after the person that won the All-American. That owner, none of his horses were allowed to run at Zia Park. So, I mean, we have done it before, or the track has done it before.
Someone done it, and I did it. We got
Yeah.
sued, but we did.
We'll get sued again. But as long as we're not, the problem we have, and sorry, Madam Chair, speaking out of turn, but the problem we have to be careful of is being seen as in collusion, but think we need some uniformity of policies among racetracks of you get X amount of hair tests, you're out. And the Horsemen's Association can, if you're not a member of the Horsemen's Association, you're not allowed to run. You're not allowed to breed awards and so on and so on.
Well, yeah, I think that's, in this time period that we're going through right now, this would definitely be something that I could see as a positive influence in our industry. And I would encourage us as a committee to look into this and put some teeth into it. And the most important thing that you can do to help this industry in management is to come together and put together this recommendation, policy, whatever, scientific procedures. Yes.
I'll be quick, Madam Chair. Thank you, Tom Gontroff, New Mexico Horse Breeders. That's the best news I've heard in a long time. If the tracks can get together and come up with uniform policy, yeah, it's collusion. It is collusion. It's collusion for the betterment of the industry, the welfare of the horse. What kind of a statement would New Mexico be making if we did that? It would be fantastic. It's exactly where we need to go. And further to Izzy, if I may, I think we should also pursue the legal opinion with the AG's office. Put even more teeth into this.
And we need rules to back that up.
Exactly.
I mean, that's my question.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chastain.
Alan Chastain, I think Jeff too is right. I think this is going to be another one of these things that is industry driven. We follow ARCI in therapeutic schedule and testing. I think that is the best you can do. We can identify the bad actors out there. We've done that. But what can we do about them? That's where we're hung up. That's where I think you guys get together and we actually start solving some of these problems. I think we're there at identifying them.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to do anything about it. We're there at identifying them. Now, I think these guys, not unlike many topics that we've discussed today, going to be industry driven. The commission is, we've got to have the commission to set these rules, but many of the things that propagate our sport and put us into the next millennium is industry driven. And we talked about several of them today. This is one.
Is there someone else in the back? Me? Dr. Gonzalez? No?
I'm okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Alexander?
Yes, ma'am, Vanessa Alexander. First of all, Mr. True, Mr. Dix, bravo, absolutely. As an owner, I absolutely think that is a fantastic idea. It is your sandbox. You can choose who plays in it, kick them out. Last year, a great example, Jesus Peretti was the leading trainer at Zia. He was not allowed at Sunland. And many trainers rejoiced in that, and as an owner, I did as well. Just a couple questions. First of all, as an owner, I would support my horse being hair tested at the test barn because of the issues that we've had, especially this year. I think that might actually be another inclusion that Mr. Trejo could probably stem on. The conduct detrimental to racing that Mr. Brown brought up. Conduct detrimental to racing, that's exactly what it means. It's things that we do off track as owners and affect us as stewards, and especially now involving horse racing, match racing, and other things like that. And then finally, I did have a question from a friend of mine that's not able to attend about the hair testing not appearing on RC. And I tried to explain that, but I think maybe Dr. Chastain or Mr. Haig could probably explain why the tests are not being hidden, the hair testing specifically, but they don't appear on RC. And I tried to explain it myself, but I think it probably be a good idea if you please get feedback in that way. Thank you. Yes, ARCI, I'm sorry.
Okay. I was thinking racing
Sorry.
commission. RCI. Thank you, Sally.
Yes, thank you.
Alan Chastain, I don't have an answer to that. I don't know what information is given to ARCI to be published or not. I have no information.
Basically, rules.
Mr. Trejo?
Yes, Madam Chair, we've discussed, we compiled a spreadsheet about a competition test that we conducted in the state. And, we've discussed posting that on our website so people can see the horse that's been tested, the date, the trainer, the violation, if any happened, the type of test that was done, whether it's blood, urine, or hair. We do have a list, so it's something we've flirted with on our website, so everyone has access and will be considered transparent in doing it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't have counsel here to get some advice on that, because I think we have to be careful with releasing names and things like that. So that would be a question that we can maybe report to the next schools committee meeting. Yes, Mr. Dr. Gonzalez.
Dr. Gonzalez, what Vanessa Alexander was talking about, that's excellent. Yes, that's true. The most detrimental drug to horse racing right now are the beta agonists. Clenbuterol, albuterol. We're hammering the trainers and owners, everybody, horses. I'm sure Dr. Chastain, and no other vets here, but I'm sure he has treated toxicities from these drugs. We need to, albuterol is going to fly to the test barn, testing blood and urine all forever. They'll get through it. That's the nature of that drug. Now, if you go back and you start, and if we could get hair testing for every horse, every post-race sample, that's where you're going to pop your albuterols. You're not going to get albuterols on blood and urine. You're not going to catch it. And that's how you can eliminate it. Clenbuterol hangs out in the urine. Albuterol does not. So, if we could get hair sampling done at post-race samples, that would be a way to eliminate your beta agonist abuse, which has destroyed the horses in New Mexico. I've seen them. I've treated them. They've died under my watch. So,
I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah, it's bad.
Well, we appreciate that you care for our horses enough to just have this discussion with us. And, we are working really hard behind the scenes, and I think Izzy and I talk for hours and hours, almost, every other day, trying to figure out what we can do here. We are concerned just as well as you all are, and we welcome any suggestions in moving forward with this. In any other circumstances we're discussing. Mr. Chapman.
To reply to Dr. Gonzalez, as I understand the hair testing, it represents a period of time. So that period of time, then, depending on what would come out of that, that's why only that horse has been sanctioned, because that period of time, who had that horse, yes, we have the ultimate insurer rule with the trainer, but for that period of time of that 6 months, I don't think it's gonna stand up in court. We go back and try to sanction that, and that's kind of where we've been running.
So we have issues with the hair.
That issue with the hair.
That's what stewards is about.
Mr. Everly.
Yeah, Dick Capucci, that is the biggest thing that we have out there right now, is the albuterol. And just what Dr. Gonzalez, what Dr. Chastain said, why don't you pick after the overnight comes out and the horse is entered, and then go to Dick Capucci's barn or go to Jay Rader, whoever you pick, and say, I want these 6 horses. Don't wait and try and catch them to the test barn. Go do hair testing then, and do it on regular horses. Don't just do it on the stakes and those.
And if I could add to that, Alan Chastain, Blago, yes, in a different medium too. Hair only penalizes that horse for those 6, so in blood.
Yeah.
Out of competition testing in blood. Now you're gonna get the trainer and the owner.
True.
But not in just the hair, so give them a week out. It's not just as simple
Yeah,
as that.
I think we're trying to be smart about what we do, and I'm learning about oil-based and water-based, clenbuterol, the differences of white stays in the horse longer and white doesn't. So, I'm not as close to being a vet or an assistant or a tech or anything like that, but I'm an owner, and I think it's wise that we share this information so that lay people really can understand what is really happening on the vet side or at the training facilities, whatever, and that we as an owner have opportunities to choose and make those decisions that are necessary. Yes, Mr. Trainer?
Yes, Madam Chair, to touch on what Otto said, the commission's future is out of competition testing. We went from 508 samples last year to 771 as we speak today. It's a program that we are going to continue to grow because we think the hair is where it's at. But if we can coincide that with the sanctions for these guys, we hit the home run that we're kind of looking for.
Yeah.
So that's what we're gearing towards. Yeah, post-race is still important, but there may be a time when we come back to just test the winner because it's in the rule book and we put our money towards that competition, testing a guy's entire outfit, like we did Jose Muela this in August. I think more of that has to be done. I think we're on the right track with it.
I think we're gonna go ahead and move to the next item. And in B, no action taken.
Actually, potential action is being considered. Would be more accurate. Tom Gottschalk, U.S. Board.
And that was what it stated here, consideration of the board. So, and it can be brought back to the agenda if we feel we're ready to discuss that.
Thank you.
And paper okay, before we go any further, since it's 4:30, so we're stopping at
Yeah, we're
4:45.
done with this. Yeah.
We have discussion for paper trainers, amending definition of a maiden, number of days for a track to open and close before each meet, and hair testing and thoroughbreds, and best penalty for trainers with multiple out of competition and positive tests. Mr. Trainer, do you have a preference as to what we should be discussing?
Madam Chair, I don't, I certainly leave it up to the committee members, but I know we covered S pretty thoroughly there in the last 20 minutes.
Well, I think Tom's thing about paper trainers is extremely important, in my personal opinion. If we don't discuss anything but that, if this takes 15 minutes, I think it's.
Well, we need to get pardon me, Madam Chair, Tom Gottschalk, New Mexico Horse Breeders. If I may, if we could get to R, Mr. Taylor is here specifically for that item, and it's gonna be quick. It'll only take a couple of minutes if you don't mind, if I may suggest that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make a funny comment here because I know Mr. Taylor, but I've never known Mr. Taylor to be quick.
He puts us on a timer at our meetings, so, and you have a big enough gap.
Okay. All right, if it's all right with the committee, if we can move to 4R.
General consent.
Okay, consensus, okay. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, Madam Commissioner, new statutes, forced us, well, the horse breeders was trying to get out of was a fiduciary bond that we had to buy each year. And it was basically a fiduciary bond that covered nothing but employee theft, which we already had insurance for. And so the new statute said that the commission would write a rule. And after meeting with Izzy, I proposed the following under the New Mexico Horse Breeder shall ensure accounting all funds and deposited and paid without to the distribution. I won't read all of it, but anyway, listed out our insurance. We have a yearly audit each year. The 12 years I've been there, we've never misplaced a penny. And we can give that report each year to the commission.
Mr. Taylor, I'm just going to lift this up so everybody knows where you are. This is what you're proposing, right? Okay.
And that's about it. I listed out our insurance. We have $1 million worth of cyber liability, $1 million for directors and officers, $1 million for employee theft. I didn't list on here. We also have a $2 million umbrella policy. When we were trying to get rid of this, or we're hoping that we could get away without having the fiduciary bond, we went through, Mary and I did with the bank, and we set up all kinds of protocols in the bank. Basically, our money comes in from two directions, and it's wire transferred, all of it except what goes in the general account from our dues and registrations. And once it gets inside those 28 accounts, there's repeat codes, and it can only go where it's supposed to go until it pays out. So I think right now we have a real safe system, along with the $250,000 FDIC insurance on each account. Most of those accounts do not exceed that. The only one that does is our fund account, and that is only for about 30 days. When we fund it, we write the checks. The checks are written through the bank. They have fraud protection on them. We have dual signatures on anything over 10,000. We have, I think, everything in place that we need to have. We should spell that out there.
And this is your proposal to add this rule to the New Mexico Racing Commission?
Yes.
It would be under 15.2.18, then that, right?
Yeah.
Did not mention, it wasn't on
Who is your bank?
I beg your pardon?
Who's the bank?
Yeah, sir.
here.
U.S. Bank.
And I believe this is something that you had to go through the legislature for approval, and they did You did say at the top, I think I was there at one of your meetings with the legislature, but you said that you would propose this to the Racing Commission for their approval.
That's correct. That's correct. And the way the final legislation wrote was that the horse breeders no longer had to furnish a fiduciary bond, but we had to have a rule with the Racing Commission that the Racing Commission was satisfied with.
Mr. Trainer?
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, Madam Chair, we did meet, we went through this with pretty in detail, and we're very comfortable with the verbiage that they provided for the rules that were mandated by statute to create. So I appreciate the help, Mary and Mr. Taylor gave us in coming up with this.
I move that we approve. A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
And that was quick.
That was quick, Jay. Let me hand it to
So
you.
you're not paper trainer. Yeah, you got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, on the agenda, the item says update, it doesn't say for action. So do we need to amend the agenda or amend the motion?
Let's amend the motion.
Well-
You're absolutely correct.
No attorney here. It's not, Don took it down, it's not an action item.
On the agenda.
It is an action item. It's under 4, which is action items.
Where,
But on R, it says update.
See, under,
Yeah,
under action.
You're updating the rule, and the action is to update the rule.
Adopt the rule. Or is it to adopt the rule because it had, this is a brand new.
Oh, is this a brand new
Yeah, it's a
rule?
brand new rule, so it had to be discussed, you know, and given an update and.
so we're good voting on it and approving it, everything good?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, if the committee's fine with it, we can mention it to our council and make sure that we did follow procedure, and if we did not, we'll bring it back to the table.
Or maybe it needs, pardon me, Tom Gontrop from Mixed Horse Breeders, unless it needs to go before the full commission, you know,
Right, we could also put it on the agenda so we.
if necessary.
Take care of it.
I should ask this, Don Cook, did any of your other board members have any concern with this at all?
None, this is just straight.
Just formality.
cleanup book- Yeah, formality.
Okay.
We had to go through the legislature to basically get us off our neck. There's only 2 boards in the state that had the same fiduciary requirement. It was us and the Realtors Board. And it was just sort of a weird deal that kind of slipped through the cracks. Nobody paid any attention to it. But it cost the association, I think, $20,000 a year.
Correct.
But it was in statute, so we had to go get the statute changed. And basically, what the legislature said was, just paraphrase, but we don't want to mess with this. If the commission is okay with this, and it's under the commission's supervision, we're happy with it. So that's essentially. Well,
Yes, Jay.
Jay Taylor, the other thing is, this is one of, I think, only 2 fiduciary bonds that you can get, that were issued in the state of New Mexico.
Nobody writes
You
them.
can't buy them anymore. And so they had us, they could jack it up whatever they wanted price-wise, and they were getting pretty spendy with it. And it really didn't cover anything. It uncovered employee theft. It was, and we were doubled up with it. The reason it started was because our organization didn't have any money or any insurance when we first started. You know, but we built up over the year, and we're a lot different than we were when the first statute came in for the fiduciary.
Okay, my question was, it didn't say action item, but if you're good, we're good. Let's go. Next item.
I think we're fine. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have, I was reminded, just reading the statute, it's not related directly to the motion, but just one point. The 10% breeder's bonus that's paid right now by the tracks is really supposed to be paid by Breeders Association directly. In fact, it was brought up in an audit of Zia Park, I don't know about the other tracks, that we have to pay that out. Cause a lot of administrative work, a lot of, duplication of efforts. Would like to know if that is going to be taken over by the breeders as per the statute.
Not that I know of. I think
Well,
there's
again,
some-
we were dinged in an audit. I'm just bringing it up for future
The
discussion.
10%
It's always been
incentive
there.
fund. They're two-
Madam Chair, if I may, if let me bring this issue before our board at our next meeting this month. And by the time we meet again, this Rules and Medication Committee, I'll hope to have an answer for you. That'd be great. I'm not familiar enough with it to give you an intelligent answer.
Need deep, and it's always been there.
I'm sorry?
It's always been there.
In the statute?
No,
And it is
it's not an
followed by
issue about
by putting
10%,
it
so.
into the ward fund.
Mary,
We do set up the account, you do send us the funds, and you do administer that.
Can we have a point of clarification then? What is it?
Okay,
The 10%.
the 10% breeders fee, not the incentive, 10% breeders fee, which is paid by the racetracks right now by statute. However, we're not only funding it, we actually process the checks. We have to do all the administrative work. We have to give the information to the breeders, who then verify it and send us back the same information. It's very, it causes a lot of administrative work on our side. It's actually, in statute, supposed to be administered by the Breeders Association. I know it's always been done this way. I'm just bringing it up since this other
So you're
issue was
talking
brought
about
up.
the administration, not the money instead of.
Not the money that goes into it.
Okay, that
Not the money that
helps
goes
my
into it.
clarification.
it's been brought up in audits before.
Okay. Well said. All right, well, Mr. Contra, I think that's a good item to put on your agenda for the next board meeting here. Add that to the list. I would like to say, before we end and adjourn today, how healthy I think our discussion was today. I think that, people bringing items for discussion, it's a good thing. And I really want to encourage us to do this quickly and forward thinking that we can. As mentioned earlier, we have a lot of things that we need to take care of. Because we're now discussion with the future of our industry, and I should like to see the Mexico be a forthright leader. And I know we have a lot of people on this committee right now that will be talking about things, changing things, and I encourage us, because that's how we get better. I want New Mexico to be one of the top states, and I think I mentioned that in one of the first meetings we had at the commission meeting, that there's no reason why we can't be a significant leader in this industry because of the people that we have in our state. And the people who invest in our budgets in our state. And a lot of those people are from us and believe in us and are looking up to us to lead this industry. So thank you so much. Move second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Really? Make it right.
When I worked at the racetrack, I remember the horse company. I know.